welcome everybody. It's great to have all of you in the room tonight, and to all of you online, welcome as well. We'll go ahead and start the meeting with an invocation, which we observe by a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Clerk, will you call the roll?
Agent.
Here.
Clegg.
Here.
Halliburton.
Here.
Sanchez.
Here.
Willits.
Here.
Woodings.
Here.
All present.
Thank you. Before we go into the agenda, I'm going to take a moment of personal privilege because today is the start of the Lunar New Year. It's what many of us call the Chinese New Year, but it truly is the Lunar New Year recognized by Asian Americans in our country, and of course, Asians from throughout Asia and around the world. And before I proclaim today, in recognition of the Lunar New Year, I want to say it's an honor to have so many members of our Asian American community with us here tonight. I had the pleasure of spending time in China through a State Department organization called the American Council of Young Political Leaders, as did Lucy Willits. She spent time in both China and Taiwan. And then together, the two of us hosted a delegation from Taiwan, the first ever ACYPL delegation to visit this state a couple years ago. And it was really an honor to share our community with those visitors. And with that, what I'd like to do is read this proclamation. We have a framed one to present to you. If folks want to take a picture with the council, we can do that. Some of our council is online, of course, because of COVID. And then, of course, wish you each a happy, healthy, and prosperous new year. So I'll go ahead and read this. Whereas the Lunar New Year is one of the most important holidays for many East Asian and Southeast Asian communities, and includes cultural rituals from several religious traditions, ancient myths, and folk customs. And whereas the Lunar New Year, also known as the Spring Festival, inspires a hopeful transition from the cold winter to the season of warmth and renewal, and is a time for family gatherings, feastings, and festivities. And whereas the 2022 Lunar New Year, marked by the new moon on January 31st, 2022, ushers in worldwide celebrations commemorating the Year of the Tiger, which signifies strength and bravery. And whereas Boise's East Asian and Southeast Asian communities have richly contributed to Boise's past, present, and future, and the city of Boise honors their legacies. And whereas the city of Boise denounces anti-Asian harassment and violence and stands with all our Asian communities in support and solidarity. And whereas as the Year of the Tiger begins, we wish good fortune, health, prosperity, and happiness to all who celebrate. Now, therefore, I, Lauren McLean, Mayor of Boise, do hereby proclaim February 1st, 2022 as the Lunar New Year in the city of Boise. And we encourage our citizens to join with their communities to celebrate and participate in New Year activities and traditions. Thank you. So I will go ahead and sign this one.
Do you need a pen?
I had a pen. I had my blue pen. And we keep one in our archives and then have one to present to the, yes, Young. Great, wonderful.
Sure.
Thank
you.
It's right over here. Yeah. We want to include them. Oh.
Let's include them. That's kind of fun. Is that all right with you all?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Let's get a few more of you on the left side. Try and balance it out.
Yes.
I want to make sure she's done as well. Are you good? Thank you. Oh, do it.
Well, thank you all for coming. I think it's very auspicious that this coming year is the year of the tiger. We will all need courage and bravery to address the pressing needs and important issues of our community in this rather tough time that we're all going through. So it's super wonderful to have you all here. Appreciate the opportunity to wish each of you a happy new year, and thank you for sharing your tradition and celebration with us in our community. Take care.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So next we have a request for approval of the minutes from the strategic planning session and day meeting of January 25th.
I wasn't here.
Oh, Madam Mayor,
Yes,
I move that we approve the minutes from the strategic planning and day meeting of January 25th.
Second.
we have a motion, a second. Clerk, will you call the roll?
Halliburton,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Willetts,
Yes.
Woodings,
Abstain. I was absent.
Bajent,
Yes.
Clegg.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. Next up, we have two items under special business. First, the appointment of Patrick Bajent to the Harris Ranch CID Board.
Madam Mayor, I ask unanimous consent for the appointment of Patrick Bajent to the Harris Ranch Community Infrastructure District Board.
Without objection.
Madam Mayor,
Oh.
no objection, just really happy that Councilmember Bajent has agreed to join us. Thank you.
Thank you for your service. Appreciate it. And next up, we have an update on the Boise Art Museum lease. Oh, Chloe's here. Great. You're here in person. I just want to, well, I'll let you make the, I'm not going to steal your thunder. I'll say something at the end. No.
How about this?
Yes.
There we go. All right. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I am here to provide you with a quick overview of the short-term lease that staff has been successful in negotiating with BAM per your direction in early January. The lease is on the consent agenda for approval this evening, and pending your approval, it will expire July 31st. Additionally, staff is meeting with BAM on March 9th to begin negotiations for the long-term lease to begin sometime in July. A couple of key pieces about this short-term lease. The lease states that on or before its expiration, either a new long-term lease has been executed or one or both parties have requested an extension from City Council. Incorporated into the language is that the city retains the rights under the 1996 agreement which may include the termination of BAM's right to use the building if both parties are unable to come to an agreement on that long-term lease. While the lease does retain some additional aspects of that 1996 agreement, it also amends others, including a very clear acknowledgement that the city owns the buildings, all of the improvements and the facilities. It requires BAM to take over the utilities by March 1st. And then it provides a clearer delineation of the maintenance obligations between the city and BAM. The lease outlines that BAM will not be charged rent during the course of this particular lease, but it does require the city to continue to pay for the FTE, that is the maintenance FTE in the short term, but staff intends to renegotiate this piece as part of the long-term agreement. Please let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, I will be back in a few short months with more information about the long-term lease.
Madam Mayor, I just want to commend the hard work of Chloe and others on getting the short-term lease executed. I read through it. It looks like it achieves what we needed to achieve, which is to delineate clearly who is responsible for what and limit our liability. Should anything happen, it just makes it clear so that we know who's liable in what situations. I really appreciate that. I think it really protects us, protects BAM, and that's what we were hoping to achieve. I look forward to helping you out in any way that I can to work toward that long-term lease over the next several months. So I'm here for you. Let's get it done.
Thank
And
you.
I super appreciate you.
Thanks.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, go ahead.
thank you. I also wanted to thank Chloe and just recognize how much hard work she put into this. I know it was a lot. In addition, I know that
Council President,
coming and it wouldn't have happened without that. I also want to acknowledge BAM. I think that their willingness to move into this short-term lease while we negotiate the long-term lease, or at least their recognition that this is beneficial to all of us, was a big move on their part. So thank you to them.
all right, I will just wanted to say thank you, Chloe. And thank you to BAM as well. We appreciated the engagement of the board that came to the last meeting. Really appreciate the work that you did to nail down this short-term lease so that we can get to a long-term lease that's in alignment with the council policies and create certainty as well for the art museum moving forward. But you've done something that so many people before you weren't successful at doing. So congratulations and kudos for that. And if Council President Pro Tem will be the council member that is working with you. And so while she offered, I appreciate your offer of being that designee as the lease is hammered out to ensure that it's in as close alignment as possible with the policy that was created. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. And I was actually going to end with a thank you to you all for your direction and support, both as we have worked on this negotiation, but in general on the nonprofit lease policy over the past year. So thank you for your guidance and support. I'll see you soon.
And just some operations stuff, Council President. When in your last comments, we got them, they're fine. We don't need them repeated. But you did blip out for a little bit. So I think you're in one of those many yellow zones from the broadband map that we saw. I might ask you at some point if that happens again, or ask the clerk just to let you know via message. And we might need to just try turning off your camera or something, but we'll let you know. Right. Okay, next up is the consent agenda. All items with an asterisk are considered to be routine by the council and will be enacted by one motion. There'll be no separate discussion on these items unless a council member or citizen so requests. in which case the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered in its normal sequence.
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any
Madam
discussion?
Mayor,
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
just a quick comment, if I could, Resolution 7222 is the budget and amendments to the EMS JPA Joint Powers Agreement. As you all know, I'm the chair of that board. We have not reported to the council for some time, and we talked at our last meeting of coming to a work session soon with a report. But just a reminder to anyone, if you have questions, either myself or the fire chief can likely answer those. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
I too wanted to call attention to a resolution without pulling it off the consent agenda. Resolution 7722 is really in many ways the kickoff to the water renewal work that we'll be doing. It includes not an expenditure, but an authorization to begin expending money for the water renewal work. And that's the product of a lot of hard work by Director Burgos, Division Manager Falconer, the person who I now refer to as Chair Gravatt, who I see out here, our faithful chair of the Public Works Commission, and then the well over 80% of people in the city of Boise who voted to support this and to move forward with the next generation of water renewal here. So I wanted to note that that work that we were directed by the voters to do is going forward, and that our hardworking staff is already on it as of February 1st.
Madam Mayor, I just want to point out that Resolution 76-22 is the short-term lease that we've been talking about, and that it's on the resolution agenda for tonight.
Thank you. And with that, clerk, will you call the roll?
Halliburton,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Oh, did we lose Lisa?
Oh, no.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Willetts,
Yes.
Woodings,
Yes.
Bajent,
Yes.
Clegg.
Yes,
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you. We have nothing on first reading, but we do have one ordinance on second reading.
Madam Mayor, I ask unanimous consent that all ordinances on the second reading calendar be read by number and title only and filed for the third reading calendar.
Without objection.
4D-2-22 and ordinance CAR 19-00022 for property located at 3047 Southbound Way, amending zoning classifications of the city of Boise City to change the classification of real property, particularly described in section 1 of this ordinance, from C-1D neighborhood commercial with design review overlay to PCD-DA pedestrian commercial with design review and development agreement, setting forth a reasoned statement in support of such zone change and providing an effective date.
Thank you. We have nothing on third reading. No unfinished business. And so we will move into new business and the public hearings. First up, we have CBA A2131 on Ellis Ave. We saw this before.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, the item before you is a reconsideration of the city council's decision to uphold the Planning and Zoning Commission's decision to deny a variance to encroach the rear and side yard setbacks for a proposed detached accessory structure with an associated accessory dwelling unit on 0.14 acres located in R1CH single-family residential with historic overlay zone. Just as a refresher, the parcel contains an existing single-family house and detached garage. The proposal is to remove the existing garage and construct a new 1,292 square foot, two-story tandem garage with ADU. The variance request is to place the structure 3 feet from the side property line and 10 feet from the rear property line within the required 5-foot side and 15-foot rear yard setbacks. And in August, the Planning and Zoning Commission denied the variance requests. In October, this council heard an appeal of that decision and upheld the decision of the Planning and Zoning Commission. However, while the appeal was denied, the council gave the appellant direction to investigate the location of the utility lines to see if the lines were coming from the alley and if the location would ultimately prove a hardship in the siting of the proposed garage. As outlined in the reconsideration request and shown here in red, an existing gas line runs through the alley. On the property, it comes in close proximity to the proposed structure, which the applicant contends is a hardship. Utility lines are run through alleys throughout the north end and are ubiquitous within residential districts and the city at large. As such, the planning team does not find the presence of utility lines to be a hardship as allowed through the variance approval criteria, as nearly all property owners may be presented with a similar situation. Further, the planning team did not find the information provided through the reconsideration to show an error was made by the Planning and Zoning Commission as outlined by appeal review standards of the Development Code. As such, the planning team recommends the reconsideration be denied and that the commission's original decision to deny the variances be upheld as the request does not meet the required findings for a variance. Thank you, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
just I want to make sure I have this framed correctly. We heard this. We directed the applicant to come back with some more information. Then we had a reconsideration request where we granted reconsideration. We granted something. I remember that on the agenda, and now we're here. And I guess my question is the motion that you need a motion to hear this some more in the future? Or is it a motion on the merits of the request tonight?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Bajent, it is to hear it on tonight.
Okay, thank you. Madam Mayor, I would move that we grant the request for reconsideration and hear it tonight. Is that what you're looking for? No, I withdraw my motion.
Yeah, Crystal, could you just review process? Because we saw this, it was denied.
Sure.
The council suggested things that could be taken into consideration. Did it
Correct.
come back to us? Councilmember Bajent said we saw it a second time already. Is this the third time?
Madam
That's where I'm
Mayor,
confused.
so Madam Mayor, after the original upholdal of the commission's denial, the applicant did submit the request for reconsideration, which was then put on an agenda. You have to approve the request, and now we're hearing.
Oh, that's why it's been so long. Okay, gotcha.
Mhm. Sorry for the confusion.
And so then what is the impact from a process perspective of this? Because I thought I heard one answer to the council member, but then I'm not sure that everybody's on the same page.
Madam Mayor, I believe the decision tonight is if we approve, the reconsideration reopens the appeal essentially, so you can either uphold this P and Z's decision or you can reverse the denial. I believe that's.
Fair, Madam Mayor. So if all of us stop talking, we will proceed to hear the merits of the reconsideration request next. Is that right?
So, Madam Mayor, excuse me, Councilmember Bajent, the information was included in the packet, and as I went through it, we found that it didn't still meet the variance approval criteria or appeal. That's the opinion of the planning team.
Okay, so Madam Mayor, quick follow-up. So what we have in front of, we've granted the request for reconsideration. You've submitted the memo, the packet material. Your recommendation is that we now hearing the reconsideration, your recommendation is that we deny it and that we take that final vote tonight.
I think what's happened is that if we approve the reconsideration, then we're hearing the reconsideration this evening.
Madam Mayor,
Yes,
oh, okay.
yeah. And so this motion is a preview of, we just had the staff report and I'm just I'm getting nods back here.
I can clarify, Your Honor. I'm sorry, Madam Mayor.
Yeah, no motion is,
Apologies.
Little court hang up there.
that was like, I just got a promotion. I know I gave one to Lisa. So, yeah, will you go ahead from a process?
Just for the record, James Smith, Deputy City Attorney, the reconsideration request was granted.
Right.
Which meant just that council would hear the appeal again. So it is now an open question back to the council whether to uphold the appeal and reverse Planning and Zoning Commission's denial or deny the appeal and affirm the denial.
But before you can make a motion, we have to hear from the applicant. We have to hear from the public. And then, so as part of the staff report, this was their recommended motion. But a motion is not we're not ready for motion yet.
Perfect. That's where I was confused. I was waiting for the part where we got to hear from everybody else and I was afraid we needed the motion now and then we wouldn't hear for them. And then my brain.
Right, and
short-circuited.
the applicant is there, and I feel like if it could, the hand would be bouncing up and down on the Zoom or Teams screen at this point. So yes, we know that we will hear from you. So any other questions? Okay,
Apologies about that.
all
It's a
right,
weird one.
great. And with that, then we will hear from the applicant.
Madam Mayor, the applicant is online and is able to present.
Great. If you'll just unmute, we can see you. Perfect.
Good evening. I'm trying to share my screen. It says you cannot share your screen.
We'll fix that. Thanks for letting us know.
And Madam Mayor, I'm going to request IT's help in screen sharing.
Okay, I got access, it looks like here. Okay, good evening. Can everybody see the screen?
Yes.
Good evening. My name is Mike Moralio, and I am the homeowner at 2629 West Ellis Avenue. And I appreciate the opportunity to appeal the decision made and provide the new information requested at the October 19th City Council hearing. So just want to give a brief overview of the project and why the variance was requested in the first place, present the new information requested by City Council and how that would impact my project, discuss a recent variance granted for a similar project, and just kind of finally make my case for why I believe Boise City Code allows City Council to grant a variance for this hardship. So just a brief overview. Again, we're looking to replace our existing garage with a new garage ADU, looking to maintain the historic look and function, working within our lot. And all we're trying to do is take the existing garage, make it slightly longer and slightly wider. And this is our opportunity to go green with solar panels. So the original variance was requested because we do have physical lot constraints from our historical lot configuration, which is why we chose the configuration and need the variances. We also have exceptional circumstances as directly behind our home, we have an alleyway that's over congested with school children during the day from the elementary school playground, as well as churchgoers who use the grounds as a parking lot. Again, this is our current configuration. You can see right now our garage, in order to make it work, it's 2 feet 2 inches away from the side property line. So you just pull straight in off Ellis Avenue. We have the elementary school right behind us there. All we're asking for in this is a variance to actually expand that to 3 feet. Like Crystal said, it's 5 feet, but we need to maintain a 3 foot in order to pull in and out of our new proposed garage without hitting the corner of our house, damaging our home or our vehicles. This is the existing site photos. Again, bought the house 10 years ago now because the alley or because of the front loading driveway. As highlighted there as well, we have a side entrance, which makes it easy to unload and load children. Got 3 kids, 3 and under. And we have this corner concern in the right photo that only comes into play if the variance is not granted. The exceptional circumstance, again, we have an elementary school playground directly behind our house. All we're trying to do in this situation here is just avoid the alley access. I don't want it, it should be something very unnecessary. If we have to take alley access, then we present unnecessary safety issues that is not wanted by us or the school. So new information. The council on October 19th requested locations of utility lines. And just wanted to point out the sewer line here highlighted in green and some of the mature trees on the back of the property. Looking at the other half of the yard now, you can see the existing garage on your far left, the edge of the proposed garage there in the purple line, and then the yellow line is the spray paint and gas line when I had the utility locate come out. And at its closest there were from our proposed edge of our garage ADU, we're still 3.6 feet away from the gas line. So we're a safe distance in order to install this without having to move any utilities. This is the proposed site layout, again, just showing an overview with the existing gas line, the existing sewer line. So again, the variances that we're seeking are just to maintain our proposed configuration so we can use our work within our historic lot configuration, avoid the alleyway, and not have to relocate any utilities or lose any of our mature trees. If this was denied and we had to do some sort of code compliant typical 2-car garage, we're going to be impacting our utilities. We're going to have to move them. So we either going to have to move it because we impact just the gas line or the gas line and the sewer line, depending upon configuration. So what does that cost us, or what's the hardship here? So in looking at these scenarios, I went back and I got quotes from the city of Boise, cost from the utility company and sewer companies, and cost to remove the mature vegetation. And all in, we're potentially looking at up to $20,000 to relocate utilities. And so this would be an unnecessary financial burden on our family. So if we maintain the proposed site layout again, as shown here, we don't have to move anything. The other thing I wanted to bring up here tonight was Planning and Zoning's most recent hearing, January 10th. A variance was granted for a reduced rear setback for a 2-car garage due to a pool. And so in the staff report presented by Planning and Zoning, they said that utility work does not constitute a hardship. But again, it looks like a pool does constitute a hardship. So one of the things I want to consider tonight when City Council was reviewing this is, why would a pool count as a hardship, but not historic lot configuration, something that seems to me to matter, or congested alleyway that creates safety issues, or major utilities work? Why would those not constitute it, but a pool constitutes a hardship for a variance? So kind of in closing, again, just want to present the new information the council requested in October. We can easily avoid relocation of the utilities, loss of our mature trees, or kind of the unnecessary financial cost to our family to reroute everything when it's not needed, which could cost up to $20,000. Again, the variance, looking at code, all we're trying to do for a variance is work within the constraints of our historical lot configuration, which will allow us not to damage our vehicles or our home, avoid an alley loading garage, so we can preserve the existing safe conditions, and looking to council just to help with kind of demonstrate consistency, for what is a hardship, what is not a hardship. If a pool is a hardship, why would that be weighted more heavily than hardships that other neighbors experience from different things, from utilities and things like that? So finally, again, as brought up beforehand, we get this project. The variance was unanimously supported by Historic Preservation, St. Mary's Elementary School, who this directly impacts, Nina, and all adjacent neighbors, 2 neighbors across the street, 2 neighbors on the side. And I went above and beyond and, talked to each neighbor. Well, not going above and beyond there, but, my neighbors went above and beyond and actually voiced and gave me signed letters of support for my project, because they don't want to see the negative impacts to the neighborhood that would be caused by having to relocate everything on my property. So thank you, council, and Madam Mayor, for hearing my request. I yield back the rest of my time.
Madam Mayor, I do have a question. Mike, thanks so much for taking the time to come back and all the effort that you're putting into this. I know it's been a lot of work on your part. So my interpretation of what you're saying is that the utility lines that are running through your backyard represent a hardship with the cost that it would take to move those and to be able to put this in. So I guess what I'm trying to understand is these utility lines are relatively common on just about every single piece of property, and it wouldn't be abnormal for somebody to have to move a gas or utility line if they were going to do some type of construction. So the utility lines that run through the back of your property aren't necessarily unique or abnormal. And so I'm just trying to, again, better understand why this represents a specific hardship on your piece of property that other pieces of property wouldn't. Does that make sense?
I think I understand what you're saying. So, what I would ask the council to look at is that, this is just an unnecessary reconfiguring of my entire yard, and to give me something that would not work for my home my family or my neighborhood. And so I understand that there's utilities on other properties and they need reconfigured. But when I looked into the cost of these utilities and what I would have to do in order to get a usable access to an ADU garage, it's significant. And I don't bring that up to say that, that's not only unique to your point, but when you're looking at it against other circumstances and other projects in the north end, and it would be significant to the owner that was just recently approved with the pool. They would have a significant cost too. So all I'm asking the council to consider is all the challenges or things that would be added cost that would be added to my project just for helping us, allowing us this variance in order to put the garage where it should be to fit within the historical context of the home, the property, and the neighborhood.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. Madam Mayor, I do have some questions for staff, but if people have questions for Mike, I'm happy to yield some time so we can go directly to Mike.
Madam Mayor. Mr. Maragio, good evening. I seem to recall from the October hearing that there were other hardships you'd flagged then as well. And I don't remember what they were, but there was something about the driveway. I know there's the issue and I understand the issue with the corner of your home, but there was something about concrete or concrete removal, or you had some other argument then. And I just want to know if you're still making it, what is it? Because I've forgotten. And if you're not, that's okay.
Yeah, so I appreciate it. So this project has gone on since my first application last April, so this has gone on for a while. And I bought my home 10 years ago because I have a 72-foot driveway that allows me off-street parking. So in my attempt to work back and forth with planning and zoning, what they first recommended was me remove my driveway, which would be a hardship at a cost to me. And so if I am not allowed to take my proposed configuration, and I have to come off the alley, they are going to want me to remove my 72-foot driveway, which allows me to load my kids in and out, safely and park cars off the street, which is advantageous to our neighbors on the block. So that was one of the big hardships that things when we were going back and forth on the design, and the reason why I wanted to do the tandem garage and why they wanted me to remove the driveway.
Thank you.
And Madam Mayor, so the question for staff, and it relates directly to something that Mike brought up, is that he compared this to a recent approval of a variance that P&Z granted. And I know that this is asking so much of you to understand why they did it, but is it common for us to approve a hardship related to a pool, considering that a utility? Is there more to that conversation that we're not quite seeing, or is his comparison accurate to what happened?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Halliburton, the decision, from my understanding, was not based on solely the pool. It was the full package of what the request was. It wasn't down to comparing a pool to a utility. It was the configuration of the home, the historic status, what have you, full package.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I know that there's probably so many nuances to it in a whole application, and my assumption is that it is more than just the pool, that there were so many different elements that add to that, not just the pool being counted as a utility and us giving an exemption for that specific reason. Thank you.
Madam Mayor.
Mayor?
I also have a question for Crystal. The concept of hardship is one that I've really struggled with each time it comes up. And I gather from each time I've asked, what does hardship mean, that it's not really clearly defined. And what I'm struggling with again here, because here we're hearing about, ordinarily when I think of hardship, I think of hardship to the applicant. And there's some testimony about that in terms of financial costs. But here the applicant saying, this could cause a hardship to my neighbor across the alley, the school, in terms of the safety of the students or traffic there. So failure to grant the appeal would cause a hardship to them, or failure to grant the appeal would cause a hardship to my adjacent neighbors because I would be parking on the street and further congesting the on-street parking. And what I wonder, it's okay to say yes, no, or I don't know, but I wonder if, does our hardship analysis or rule, do we typically consider that kind of thing? What is the hardship to the adjacent properties? Or do we only consider hardships to the applicant?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Bajent, we do consider the full picture. And in this particular instance, what we're looking at is the side and the rear setback. While code does make preferential preference to taking access off the alley, we're not requiring that. We're just requiring that he meet the setbacks.
Okay, so Madam Mayor, to follow up. So I think what I just heard is in staff's view, it wouldn't be appropriate to consider or potentially a hardship to the school because we're not requiring that they take access off the alley. So we don't have to tangle with the thorniness of whether the hardship to the school counts. And would we require removal of the driveway if we deny the appeal?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Bajent, no.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
thank you. Crystal, so to follow up on this, you said that in staff's view, the location of utility is not a hardship. And while I certainly understand that every yard has utilities, and certainly as properties get redeveloped and remodeled, those utilities come into play. I guess I am unclear why the location of that utility should not be a factor in a decision, an overall decision about where to locate something, if we don't need to require the change in location of that utility by granting a variance. Just like in the whole picture with perhaps the swimming pool, they don't need to require the relocation of the swimming pool by granting a variance within the whole picture. I guess I'm just having a hard time understanding this, the statement that I believe I heard you say, that the location of utilities could not be a hardship, because that was not my understanding going into this particular hearing.
Madam Mayor, Council President Clegg, the variance criteria requiring a hardship be shown is really to provide an avenue for flexibility on properties that have unique physical constraints, such as topographic limitations or irregular lot shape. This site is a standard parcel. It's got no topography on it. And looking at something like a utility line, which is really ubiquitous in all residential zones, deeming that a hardship when it's something that almost any property owner might have to deal with in terms of redevelopment, in the planning team's view, does not meet that standard for variance approval.
Okay, thank you. That helps.
Although,
So,
Council President, it's well within your purview to be able to make findings that suggest that it is.
Yeah.
The council's doing a strict reading of our current ordinance. And if I remember correctly, the conversation last time from council was indeed that you all wanted more information on the placement of utilities, et cetera, as part of the deliberation that would be had in this reconsideration.
thank you, Madam Mayor. If I could ask just one follow-up of Crystal. While I certainly understand that the hardship rule is written for topography and irregularly shaped lots, it's my memory that we've also used historic conditions as part of that consideration, because historic lots often don't meet what we would currently have as criteria for size or location of utilities. Is that correct? Overall, not just the location of the utility, but the context in which it sits.
Madam Mayor, Council President Clay, could you just restate that question one more time for me?
I'll do it from here, Council President. And what she's asking is if you could point to, and it's probably hard from the dais, but point to other instances where the council has looked to the unique characterization of lots and historic districts that have constraints that are different than other non-historic lots and constraints.
Madam Mayor, that's correct.
All right, so it looks like there are no further questions right now. We have the opportunity now to open this up for a public hearing. Anybody in the room here for this one? Come on over. Welcome. Wait,
Madam
am I
Mayor,
wrong?
Sorry to jump in here. Since this is an appeal, we would just be limiting this to party of records.
Sure, and I don't have a list of party records. Were you a party of the record?
Not on this specific project, but I can speak to the issue that on 24th Street that the gentleman just referenced, the pool situation.
Oh, interesting. I would love to let you, but from a legal perspective, we can only hear from parties of record right now. Sorry about that.
Well, since this was injected as an element tonight, a new element, this 24th Street pool situation, it seems to me that expands the scope of testimony tonight. I can
I'm sorry.
address certain things that are germane to Council Member Halliburton's questions as well as Council Member Badgent's questions.
I appreciate that, and I'm sure that they would be interested in knowing we can't do that. There was a finding, a willingness to have a reconsideration this evening, but the record, I'm going to ask the attorney to jump in here. We can't open it up to folks that weren't on the original record.
Madam Mayor, James Smith, Deputy City Attorney for the record. The appeal is limited to parties of record, which includes those who testified at the previous hearing orally or in writing, or those who signed up to testify at that hearing. So if any of in attendance tonight are in that group, they're entitled to testify.
Thank you. Sorry.
Well,
I can't have you
if I
read
could
any.
note that I'm David Klinger at 1404 North 24th Street. I did attempt to testify tonight on issues that are germane to your discussion tonight.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone online?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
can I just ask a clarifying question to follow up? So because the applicant brought, or the appellant brought new evidence around the pool situation, that doesn't mean that we are allowed to consider that in this appeal hearing. We're limited to the record in our decision-making. Is that correct?
Madam Mayor, the council has discretion to find error in planning and zoning's review. If council finds error in planning and zoning's decision, it has retained authority under our development code to reverse or modify that decision. And the development code does not limit this body in terms of what information may be considered when council reverses or modifies the decision. So it simply requires finding error on the part of the planning and zoning decision.
So question, just to kind of put that in my own simple language. Let's say we're hearing, there was a decision made by planning and zoning on a housing development, and it was to deny. And then it's appealed to us. And in that time, while the parties of record say who they were based on email and in-person testimony at the beginning, the applicant has the ability to come forward with changes to the application and present to us to allow council to substitute, if you will, new findings almost based on what they might have chosen to consider that evening. I'm just thinking about times when we've seen things that have changed from the planning and zoning decision to the time that we saw them as a council, when I was on council, that we were able to consider the changes that were responsive to the original decision.
If I understand, Madam Mayor's question, and to be fair, under the development code, there is some indication that the city would like to see new information on reconsideration requests. In fact, that's one of the criteria that asks for information and asks that it be new information that was not previously before the body on the original determination. So to be fair, that the development code does suggest that new information is that we have some interest to see that, whether it relates to the error or not.
Okay, that's right, because in order to schedule reconsideration, a member of council has to believe and make the case that for enough votes that new information is being provided. It's not the same application, so they'd see it again.
That's the criteria.
Okay, same application, meaning same proposal that they'd seen, but it still holds with the original party of record.
The parties of record are determined and locked in as of the time of the original decision that was appealed.
Great, thank you. Okay, I saw some hands raised online.
Madam Mayor, so we do have 3 individuals and I will confirm with planning, but I believe all 3 are parties of record. Yes.
Yes,
So
okay,
if you
great.
give me a moment, now that I have that confirmation, let me promote them so they
Sure.
can speak.
Thank you.
And Madam Mayor, first up is Eric Hagan.
Eric, welcome.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members. My name is Eric Hagan. I'm the North End Neighborhood Association Planning and Zoning Chair. I live at 809 North 18th Street. I've been following this project as well as all planning and zoning projects for the past year as my role in as the planning and zoning chair is. And I have seen a couple projects that came up for a variance request and ended up being approved. Sorry, I'm trying to reconfigure my screen as it switched and I lost my page that I was looking at. And these projects ended up being approved that we're requesting pretty much exactly the same variance request, a request to side yard or rear yard setbacks. One of them is the one from the other week that Mr. Maraglio had referenced, the 1402 North 24th Street. That project, ironically, if the owner chose to build his garage or design his garage the same way that Mr. Maraglio has, it would have fit on his property without a variance. He chose to do a 2-car garage in replace of a 1.5-car garage. And he actually did have room to push it closer to the pool, but that would have resulted in the exact same problem that Mr. Maraglio would have, in that he would be turning around the corner and hitting the corner of his house, ending up a little bit too close to his house. And as far as I could tell from the testimony, the only concern he had, really, the hardship he had, was the pool, which I don't really understand, similar to you, all of you guys, that a pool versus a utility line can both be moved. So it's a question of what can or what can't be. 2 other projects that have come up, in the North End, we have Alturas Heights, which is a townhouse community that was approved by Planning and Zoning back in December. And it was requesting several variances from the side yard setbacks, and it got approved. Now that site it's at Alturas and 6th. It definitely has geographical issues, but that wasn't what was pushing the need for the side yard setback variance. Really what it came down to is they wanted to fit 8 3,000 square foot townhouses on the lot, and they couldn't make it happen without getting that side yard setback. In this case, Mr. Maraglio was just asking for a couple foot setback, and that was going from a 15-foot side yard setback to a 5-foot side yard setback. In that case, that project had pushback from pretty much everyone in the neighborhood, as well as trying to also cover what Mr. Klinger was probably trying to say earlier, is that the 24th Street project also had neighborhood pushback on that, but yet they've both been approved. Earlier on in 2021, a project in the west end of town at Moore Street, trying to see if I can find the address real quick. 3205 West Moore Street.
Eric,
Yes.
you've hit time.
Oh, all right. Well, the last one would have been the same as Alturas Heights.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
You can go ahead and call people.
Dana Oland.
Yes, hi, Madam Mayor and Council council today. Dana Oland, I am a resident at 2615 West Lemp Street in Boise. I am across the house I live in backs onto Ellis Street, and Mike Moralia is my neighbor to the back. And I have been in support of this project that Mike has been trying to do since he began it. He's a great neighbor. I think some of his concerns are really to look at the greater need of the neighborhood. I mean, this is a historic area. Everything is a little bit different from house to house. You know, he didn't want to lose his front loading driveway. He wants to protect the street, the mature trees that he has in his yard, and protect his vehicle in his house. And I know he's got 3 like adorable children, and to be able to get them in and out of the side entrance there quickly is really key for his family. I understand what the whole idea of the trying to keep everything in line with codes, but it just seems that, based on the evidence that I've heard tonight, that there's enough leeway to be able to allow for this setback that Mike needs, so he doesn't damage his vehicle in his house. He doesn't take away the ability to keep cars off the street, because it does get very congested. Street parking gets very congested in our neighborhood. And he's done it by really inviting, and there is no neighborhood pushback on this project. We're all very much in line with what he is trying to do. So I'm here in support of Mike, this project, and I hope council can see a way to allow for this variance.
Thank you, Dana.
And I yield the rest of my time.
Thanks. And I think that is there one more?
Madam Mayor, there is. I keep trying to promote. So I'm not sure the challenges that they're having, but it is Jerry.
Okay, and perhaps does audio work if not visual?
Mr. Hake, are you able to speak? We have you unmuted. Your video is off, but we are not able to currently hear you.
Sir, it seems as though we're having some technical difficulties. Does he have the ability to, as a workaround, just type to you if he supports the request, or? Oh, here we go.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Something was wrong with my other computer, so I ran over here. Hi, my name is Jerry Hack. I live across the street, or I reside at sometimes at 2615 West Lemp Street. Mike is our neighbor. Thank you, Madam Mayor and council members, for allowing me to speak and share. I've shared at the last couple of meetings. I guess Mike needs to build a pool. I read through the transcript on that one, and I was pretty shocked by it, and I read through also Alturas Heights, and I thought, wow, that's a pretty big variance. He's asking for way less than that. He has a unique situation with his front loading driveway. And he proved that the front loading driveway was historically there for over 65, 70 years, I believe it was. And I just find it really sad that you're not willing to give a minor setback. Even a side variance would help him greatly. If he had a pool, that might help. That's my point, is at what point do you guys decide what's a hardship or not? This is a person that bought a long time ago when he could afford to live here. He doesn't live on 24th Street, which is one of the most prestigious streets in the North End. He lives on Ellis. He backs to a school in State Street. he backs to a school. He wants to be able to come in and out of the front. And I just went down that alley today at school time. It's really busy. And so, you know, he has gotten the support of every single neighbor that touches him, front, back, and side, and in front of. And he's such a kind and loving person and such a kind and caring individual. That's what he did, in spite of having 3 kids under the age of 3.5. So, you know, I'm asking you to reconsider what you believe is a hardship. Maybe on your income, you know, moving those for 20,000 isn't a hardship, but maybe for some people, the general people of the United States, that is a hardship. You know, and he's trying to be able to build a unit so that he can be able to work from home because of COVID. He is trying whatever he can to be able to do that. And I'm asking that you guys reconsider that and reconsider the fact that he's not building 8 townhomes and moving a setback from 15 feet, which is, to 5 feet. You know, he's asking for a minor difference. And I'd ask that you really look at that again. And I'm going to yield to Mike.
Thanks, Jerry. Anyone else?
Madam Mayor, I have no one else online with their hand raised.
Okay, thank you. So now, anyone else in the room? Okay. Just because we've had so many questions, do I then have staff and then Mike? Okay, great. All right, just want to make sure I got it right. Go ahead. Any questions for staff?
Madam Mayor, I've got a question for staff. I'm going to piece this together the best that I can. I don't have last meeting's minutes in front of me, but at the last meeting, we talked about a potential hardship of the alleyway in the back because it is next to a school, and the amount of traffic that's going back, and it makes it difficult to have a rear loading alley. We knew all that information the last time, but we didn't identify that as a hardship. We looked at all of the other areas. We didn't identify those as hardships either. But then we identified the possibility that there might be utility lines that run next to the development, and that might create a hardship with the construction. And my personal view is that every single lot has this. It's not unique. This would not qualify for a hardship because any piece of property, this is a normal size. There's nothing super unique to this. But I guess my question for staff is, we asked you to go back to and have these utilities presented. Is there any circumstance where, had these utilities been closer, further away, a certain dollar amount, that staff would have identified this actually as a hardship? I guess I'm just trying to figure out, like, what was council setting up staff and this applicant to do, and what could we have possibly discovered with his utility lines that would have led to us calling that a hardship? Is there any different structure, any different location, the ability to, like, not move utility lines at all because there would be certain constraints? Or
Madam Mayor, Council Member Halliburton, the view of the planning team and the precedent that has been set is that something as ubiquitous as this would not present as a hardship. That said, you know, council has the discretion to make a determination that this is indeed that.
Yep. And Madam Mayor, just to follow up there, I guess, so my understanding is that at the last meeting, based off where the utility lines may be and the additional cost that might occur in having to move those, we sent that back for reconsideration, because if it did, we thought that would cause a hardship. So I think that's the decision that we sent back to city staff. I'm not saying that I agree with that or not, but that, to my knowledge, is what we did at the last meeting with this particular application. Is that correct?
Madam Mayor, Council Member Halliburton, they were directed to bring back new information that could show a hardship
Related to those utilities specifically.
Right, and so the they there is important. And I was nodding because I was just saying, yes, you were recalling the meeting correctly. If the piece that I recall was that we asked the applicant that we would consider learning more related to the utility placement. And if that indeed could factor into this, we wanted the applicant to return with that information. That's my memory of the kind of deliberations that we had as a body. in making the determination that was made then.
Madam Mayor.
Mhm.
Crystal, I apologize one more time. I'm going to keep trying to learn what hardship means. And it sort of occurred to me, when we consider hardship, is part of the analysis to balance like the amount of hardship against the amount we're being asked. So for example, a grave hardship would certainly outweigh an 8-inch setback variance. And a tiny hardship probably wouldn't outweigh a 15-foot setback variance. And is there a sliding scale in there where somebody wants to deviate just a little bit from the code, only a small hardship will count, whereas a bigger deviation requires a bigger hardship? Is that part of the framework here?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Bajent, the entire picture is taken into account. So the level of impact is definitely taken into the decision on whether or not it meets the approval criteria of a variance. So I think
That's
the answer
helpful.
is
Yes, thank you.
All right, now we'll hear from the applicant once more. If there's anything, sir, you'd like to rebut or add
Yeah.
in before we
Appreciate
close this.
Madam Mayor, council members, thank you again for hearing this. You're sick of me. You're sick of this. I understand that.
Oh no, could you hear that in my voice?
So, it's just, I mean, again, this is, my goal here was to bring back the information that council requested. There's various circumstances and similar situations within just the north end. And that's the only area where, that I kind of know and talking about here, where a granting of variance is, and so I guess what I got kind of leave you with is if a pool is a hardship for one person and a moving utilities is a hardship for another person, I think there should be some consistency with ruling on that. And in regards to my situation, I know maybe by code or strict code that topography has been a hardship in the past for a variance, but historical lot configuration should be too. And that's how my lot was set up, built in 1937. And this is how it works. And that's why I designed a garage ADU to meet my lot. So with that, I asked the council to consider the everything presented tonight and make a decision that would hopefully kind of improve my chances of moving forward with this project to help my family. I yield back.
Thank you. Okay, with that, I'm going to close the public record and this issue's before council.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I would move to grant the appeal in CBA 21-31. And if I get a second, I can explain my reasoning.
Second.
Oh, so you got a whole bunch, so go ahead.
Well, maybe I don't need to explain it all then.
Please do.
Madam Mayor, a couple things. First, hardship continues to be the hardest thing for me to figure out how to apply. And the staff's comment about looking at the big picture and level of impact, I think is helpful. Here, the applicant's requesting a variance from the setback on what I gather is the south edge of the property, the back edge up against the alley. That setback is going to be against an alley that's used for people to take access to a school, as compared to, for instance, against another neighbor who might be enjoying the peace and quiet of their backyard. So the level of impact to that variance, in my mind, is small. And then on the adjacent neighbor side, we're talking about 24 inches. It's not, he's not going right up to the property line. The neighbor doesn't object. That's not really relevant because, of course, our codes are here to maintain continuity and perpetuity, but none of the other neighbors object either, nor does the historic preservation community. It's just kind of all strong and compelling evidence to me that the amount of variance or the scope or the size, the degree of the variance that's requested here is small. And then against that, we have this hardship issue where the gentleman's not talking about a trivial amount of money. Taking access through the property, given where his house is currently located, is a convoluted way to access the garage, really any way you cut it, unless you take access off the alley, which creates a different amount of hardship. And then, although not entirely relevant, I think it's kind of pertinent that all of our codes should point to efficient, high, best use of the land in our community. And here he wants to build an ADU. He wants to at least take a step towards ameliorating our housing problem. He wants to do it in a way that's safe for the children at the school. He has full support of his neighbors, and his plan will reduce parking congestion on his street. And so, in my mind, that qualifies under that kind of squishy multi-factor balancing hardship test. And so the technical grounds, I would say, would be that the Planning and Zoning Commission's decision was not supported by substantial evidence through no fault of the Planning and Zoning Commission. It took gathering additional evidence in the form of utility lines and other information to get to that conclusion. But that's the basis of my motion.
Madam Mayor.
Thanks. Yep.
Thank you. I'll be supporting this motion. I also find that in this case, the hardship, while not based on the physical configuration of the lot or any geographic conditions, is in fact created by the historic layout of the lot itself, and also by the exceptional circumstance of the school utilizing the alley for access, and in doing so, making it safer, frankly, for this applicant to take access from the front of his yard rather than from the alley. I think a fact that's acknowledged by the planning team, by them saying that they would support a new garage that does take front access. So I think between those two things, the historical layout of the lot pattern, the exceptional circumstance of the use of the alley today, and the fact that this variance, if we grant it, will not create a conflict with the comprehensive plan. In fact, as Councilmember Bajent noted, it will support many of the goals in the comprehensive plan with an ADU. It will not affect a change in zoning. It's simply a forgiveness of a few feet in terms of setback on either side. And then finally, it will not be materially detrimental to the public's health, safety, or welfare, or injurious to the property or improvements. I think that fact backed up by the case that all of the neighbors in this particular instance are supportive of this application.
Thank you, Council President. It sounds as though the record's been fleshed out as to why this motion has been proposed. I'm just going to ask if there's anybody that would like to explain a vote against the motion. All right. Will you call the roll?
Halliburton,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Willetts,
Yes.
Woodings,
Yes.
Bajent,
Yes.
Clegg.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
All right, we're going to take a break till 5, whatever this 5 is, the 25, what hour is it? 7:25, so that we don't have to cut into the next item, and we'll not take a break in the middle of it. So we'll be right back. All right, we are going to go ahead and get started. Okay, and now we have CPA 21-5, the City of Boise Pathways Master Plan. Sorry, all, we should have switched the agenda since all of you have been sitting here to talk about this. Sorry about that. But thanks for waiting it out. And with that, let's go ahead and get started.
All right. Madam Mayor, council members, it's my pleasure to present to you CPA 21-5, an amendment to Blueprint Boise to adopt the Pathways Master Plan by reference. I'll be providing a high-level overview of the plan, and my colleagues and teammates on the plan, Bree Brush and Lindsey Mosher, are here to answer any questions. The Pathways Master Plan is the city's effort to expand our off-street network of walking and biking pathways. The plan identified over 110 miles of new pathways across the city, and one build will put 76% of Boise residents within a half-mile of a pathway. In addition to identifying a network, the plan includes numerous policy and design recommendations to aid in implementation. While I'm excited to present the network to council and the public tonight, I'm even more proud to speak to the process by which the plan was developed. Over the course of 10 months, the city listened and learned from a planning work group and the public to identify opportunities and preferences for expanding the pathway network across our city. With this information, we crafted goals and identified a draft network. Then again, we opened it up to receive feedback from the work group and the community on our proposals. The planning work group was composed of various community-wide stakeholders who can ensure that as we work to identify the expanded network, we were considering a variety of citywide interests. Council President Clegg and Councilmember Halliburton served on the committee, as well as numerous other community members representing the group shown on the screen. I'd like to thank each of them for their time and commitment to the plan process. The plan's 5 goals are shown here on the screen. What we heard from our community was that they wanted a pathway system that could serve both as a recreational system and one that expanded transportation choice. Ultimately, improving our community by promoting equity, increasing public health, and reducing environmental impacts. The plan originated from the desire to build pathways where the city has the ability to plan and implement transportation-related projects. Therefore, the development of the pathway network focused on off-street corridors, such as undeveloped land, parks, canals, and roadway corridors, shown in green on the screen. Due to the built-out nature of Boise, small portions of the on-street network were identified to fill critical gaps, shown in blue, purple, and yellow on the screen. In the project report and on the City of Boise website, council and the public can access an interactive version of this map in order to explore the 110 miles of proposed pathway. In addition to the network, policy recommendations were identified. The policy recommendations focus on leveraging private development to secure pathway easements, furthering our partnerships with irrigation districts, and ensuring that the pathway system complements our on-street bicycle and pedestrian network. With the adoption of the plan brings exciting next steps. There are several concrete actions that we can take to ensure the city is making progress on the plan's goals. Beginning coordination with Parks and Recreation and irrigation districts to identify quickly implementable pathways, reviewing and updating our agreements with irrigation districts so that we can act more swiftly during the planning and zoning process, as well as incorporating language that more explicitly supports pathway development within the zoning code rewrite process. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of CPA 21-5 in December. With that, the motion before you is approval of the amendment and adoption of the plan. Thank you, and I'm here, and Bree and Lindsay are also here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Deanna. Any questions? All right, well then we'll jump right into the public hearing. 3 people signed up in advance.
Madam Mayor, this is Lucy. I did have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
Go
okay.
ahead.
I just spoke up. In reviewing material, I think this is really exciting, and I think people are going to want more and more of this. I had a question about the funding, and Madam Mayor, I don't know if now is a good time to ask that or if we need to wait till another time.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Okay, so there was a menu of possibilities on how to fund this. And I'm wondering at what point do we put pen to paper about what it will cost and how it's phased out? I also saw that some of the public comments were talking about making sure that there were staff allocated to be able to make this happen. Can you explain a little bit more about the funding mechanisms and just time that out for us?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Willetts, I think that your question or bringing it exactly to that chapter that showed the menu of funding options, as well as looking at making sure that we have a program in place that's prepared and ready to act on pathways is really our next step. We have a lot to explore, and that the pathways plan, the master plan really wanted to lay out those options. There are ways that we as a city can lead on implementing pathways, and then there's ways that we can leverage private development and other projects throughout the city. So looking to kind of move forward in both ways, but building out that program would be the next step.
Okay, so Madam Mayor, so what I'm hearing is more to come. This lays out the foundation, and I'd just like to compliment all the work. It's incredible. I think people are going to love it, and I think they're going to want more of it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, just checking with the other two council members online. Looks like we're good. Okay, so 3 people signed up in advance. So I'm going to call their names first, and then I know there are others here. Peter Snowden, come on up. And then Hunter Brote is probably online, and then Laura Metzler is here in person. Go ahead.
Madam Mayor and council members, my name's Peter Snowden, and I live in Garden City at 3400 North Plantation River Drive. And 3 years ago, I have 3 points to make. 3 years ago, I had never been to Boise. 3 years ago, I was out riding my bicycle on a California highway that was maintained by the California Department of Transportation. I was in a bicycle lane, and the middle of the road was kind of alligatored, and a chunk of asphalt had been flipped up onto the bikeway, and the color was identical to the bikeway color, and I didn't see it. And the next thing I knew, I'm going over my handlebars. Wasn't a good landing. And it was just another thing that showed to us that California really isn't very well governed. We need to look someplace else. We feel very fortunate we ended up here. And the points that I want to make, it is not surprising reading through this plan. It is very competent, very thorough, and it's focused. It isn't kind of, it's very unwishy-washy. These are the things that have to get done. They've been thought about a lot. That's very impressive. The second thing is Garden City. You've got this city of that you're kind of wrapped around and has a good chunk of the disproportionate chunk of the Greenbelt, and getting people from the West Bench, very large population, down onto the Greenbelt. I encourage you to work very closely with Garden City to both find those avenues and use the Settlers Canal. And so that's my second point. And my third point is when you look around the globe at cities that are making really good use of bicycling, there isn't, and I saw this recent selection of the 20 top cities in the world. There isn't a US city in there. And Boise could be that city. Boise has this unique thing that other cities don't, and that's the canals. And they can be a very effective way of moving people around. I know you've seen that, and it's one of the highlights in the points that are up there. I just encourage you to take advantage of that in every way possible. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Peter.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Peter, I just wanted to make a quick comment. I'm pretty sure I actually audibly heard Councilmember Halliburton's heart singing as you were talking about Boise being one of those cities that's lauded for our bicycle infrastructure and where we can make really good use of canal pathways to do that. So I just wanted to thank you for coming all the way to Boise and providing your testimony.
Thank you.
And next up is Hunter Brote.
Yes, thank you, Council, for having me. I wanted to speak to what the previous speaker spoke to. At the moment, so I live in Southeast Boise, and often I either ride in the foothills of a mountain bike or I go out to the dam on a road bike. However, if we're looking at how Boise is going to be, let's say, a destination for cyclists around the country and then those that currently live here, I think that there's a large gap in large parts of the city for being able to ride safely without interaction with cars or limited interaction with cars. And then also just the ability for people that live in West Boise. I grew up in Meridian. As a child, it's really dangerous to, for example, bike on U-Stick, right? My friends live 2 miles away and we'd have to drive there. I think the current bike infrastructure is seriously lacking in a lot of areas of the city. It's not safe to ride. And I think this does provide critical gaps to fill that, right? If you look at, the one concern I do have is if you look at a lot of the streets, for example, I noticed the infrastructure goes out towards West Boise and then some of it pops over the freeway into kind of the overland area. If those streets aren't safe, then it's not really going to be a reliable method for people to be commuting from across the freeway from overland into the city. It's just, we really need to look at a comprehensive plan, which this does. I mean, it gets us 90% of the way there, right? I mean, I'm incredibly excited to be able to go west on my bike versus east, because I think the east side of the city is the safest side of the city right now for cyclists. So I wholeheartedly support it. I just think that it needs to be rolled out soon, right? Like my biggest concern is that this is going to be a 10-year plan that like we slowly inch towards, and like it doesn't get better for a while. And then just making sure that you work with ACHG to address some of those arteries where it wouldn't be safe for you to go from pathway to pathway, right? Those are my biggest concerns to the plan, which I think this, again, it gets us 90% of the way there, and I'm incredibly excited for it. But I just think if we're looking at Boise as a whole and making it safe for cyclists, we really need to look at the areas of this plan where it would be the most dangerous for people to use it. That's all I have for my testimony.
Thanks, Hunter. I'll just say a couple things. First off, on the 10-year plan versus quick action, our team, our office is ready to get to work when this is incorporated by the council, because it's a huge priority to connect our farmlands to our foothills, and meets many of the goals of our desire to see folks be able to walk, kids especially, be able to walk 10 minutes to open space, whether that be linear along a canal or ditch or lateral or drain. And then your point about the bike infrastructure overall is well taken. And you're lucky tonight because there's a ACHD commissioner on listening with her hand raised wanting to testify. And so your comments will be heard by both agencies just by chance this evening. Thank you so much. And now we'll hear from Laura Metzler. And then that's all I have on here. We're going to go back and forth, online to in person, unless somebody here in person wants to testify and head home, which then I'm happy to take you. Go ahead.
Madam Mayor and council city members, my name is Laura Metzler. My husband and I are avid bicyclists, and we live at 5 Mile and Franklin Road, which means that according to this plan, I will be able to access downtown and the Greenbelt just across the street by way of the railroad corridor. So I'm extremely excited about this. We currently have to transport our bicycles down to the Glenwood Boise River access right there to get onto the Greenbelt. And and from there, of course, we can go to Eagle or downtown. And this just gives us a really good opportunity and a safe, because we dare not ride our bicycles out of that subdivision, because that is right now in West Boise, that is probably one of the heavily congested. We got the mall and Cabela, all that area right around there that's just heavily trafficked. So this is a good opportunity. I'm hoping that it's not a 10-year and a lot sooner, because I want to use it. And so, but I do think that for the future of Boise, this is a great plan. And so I highly support it. Thank you.
All right, we'll go ahead and call people. Yeah. Will you go with Commissioner Pickering first? I saw her picture, her
Yes,
screen. Oh, there
she
she
is
is.
available.
Great. Hi there. We're gonna have, I don't know if you're here as Commissioner Pickering, but you are Commissioner Pickering. Alexis, up next.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. Yeah, good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. I'm Alexis Pickering, a proud Boise resident at 7772 West Bay Hill Street. I'm also a public health nerd and ACHD commissioner. It's a pleasure to testify tonight in full support of the Boise Pathways Master Plan. I've been involved in the Pathways conversation for quite some time, oftentimes coming at it from a public health perspective. The benefits of pathways are well documented and cut across sectors. We see health and economic benefits, less cars on the road due to folks taking safe routes by bike or walking, and we see community connectedness. These reasons and many others are why I urge you to approve this plan. At ACHD, we have a lot of work to do to make our streets safer for everyone, for all modes. This Pathways plan is a great opportunity for partnership across all kinds of sectors and leaders to dig into making our community a more livable place. ACHD doesn't have jurisdiction outside of our right-of-way, but we have a huge impact on the road infrastructure that connects users to these pathways, as somebody just previously mentioned. So thank you, staff and Deanna, for including ACHD in the Pathway Work Group. This informs our work and helps us understand the ways we can create the connections to pathways folks need to get to safely. As a commissioner and Boise Bench resident, I've also heard from countless neighbors that we need safer pathways from the Bench to Garden City to downtown and vice versa. And as an example, Settlers Canal would serve as one of those options for safe passage for many of us on the Bench. I've only been on the ACHD Commission for a year, and I'm working really hard to make these overdue improvements on ACHD's end, but those are many years out from materializing. So approving this Pathways plan gets us one step closer to serving our shared residents better. And if approved, I understand that the work will be just beginning, and it will take leadership, collaboration, and vision to see pathways developed and used across Boise. And it won't be easy, but please know that you have a partner in me to help make this plan a reality. So thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Madam Mayor, Arlen Hacker.
Ma'am, you're muted. If you'll just unmute, we'll be able to hear you.
Hello, my name is Arlen Hacker. I'm a director on the Idaho Horse Council Trails Committee.
Okay.
And I'm also a member of the Western Riding Club, which south borders on a permanent open space area that will be very positively affected by this plan. We are excited to be included as equestrians in this. And if you'll see in the comments, equestrians are included in this. I think it's very important that people realize the scope of the equine industry here, and also the equestrian usage even within the cities of Boise. And it's important to maintain our open spaces because they're being lost at a record rate. So I'm very excited about this plan. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Madam Mayor, we have Eric Williston.
I see Eric Willitson and then Lisa Brady after Eric.
Hey, I'm Eric Wiltson. I live at 4906 West Wymosa Street in Boise. And I just want to start off by saying thank you to Mayor McLean and City Council for bringing this plan forward and supporting it through the contract last year and the planning process that happened. I think this is a really monumental day for Boise. The Greenbelt and foothills are really beloved parts of our city. I'm sure, as we're already hearing tonight, that this will be too as it starts to get implemented. I'm going to keep my comments pretty brief. I forgot to mention I'm submitting these comments on behalf of the Idaho chapter of the Sierra Club. Just two considerations for moving forward would be to hire a staff person. We've seen a lot of success in Eagle, actually. They have a staff person who's leading on implementing a robust pathway system. They don't have a master plan. They don't have a lot of these policies that you're going to be implementing and ones that Meridian and Nampa have already implemented. But I think having a staff person can really give implementation a lot of teeth and make sure that it's driving forward. And then also consider implementing the plan and integrating it with the Clean Cities Index. We know that transportation is the leading cause of air pollutants and greenhouse gas emissions, and a whole wealth of other issues that are facing our city right now. And that there's opportunity to help with the implementation of this plan to identify other like intersectional issues that are happening with it, whether that's access to public transportation, affordable housing, environmental health, public health impacts, tree canopy. So just two suggestions that I want to throw out there for implementation moving forward. And again, huge thanks and congratulations on adopting the plan tonight.
Thank you, Eric. Lisa.
Madam Mayor and Council, I just wanted to put forth my great appreciation for bringing the Treasure Valley Cycling Alliance and the Safe Routes to School program into this project. I'm very excited personally because I've heard from so many people, especially in the southwest part of our city, that there's no access. And so looking at what this will bring to the youth that I represent and the people that I talk to so often is huge. And I reflect every time I go out and use the Boise Greenbelt when we take children out for our YMCA camps and all the fun things that we get to do with the work I do, and how thankful I am to have those open spaces that bring so much to kids, that we can open their eyes to nature where they might not have been able to access it before. I see this as such a great benefit for the health of our city, the health of our region, and it really honestly brings people from everywhere. It's evidenced in the commentary tonight that people come here because of those great open spaces. One of the things that I'm very particularly excited about is looking at new development that happens or resurfacing projects that happen that allow the little slips that help these networks connect to each other. As we look at a regional bike and pedestrian network, all of these things will help tie this together to make a great system to encourage people to use active transportation as their first choice and their car as the second choice. And I yield back the rest of my time. I just want to say thank you and thanks for allowing me to speak today.
Thanks for being here, Lisa. And I appreciate that you pointed out the ability that this gives us to make open space and clean water investments that are bikeway investments in all areas of our city, particularly in West and Southwest Boise, that will have a different kind of access than they've had before. Next up, we have Marissa Keith. Welcome.
Hello, Madam Mayor. Thank you. Marissa Keith, 3279 South Cloverdale in Boise. I'm also the president of the Southwest Ada County Alliance Neighborhood Association, which is south of the freeway. But these comments are my own tonight and not the association's. So I did sit on this work group, and thank you so much for that opportunity. It was a really great experience, and I'm really happy to see this plan come before you tonight. Out here in Southwest, it's been mentioned a couple times tonight, we definitely lack in connectivity, and I wish this plan had been around like 25 or 30 years ago, and maybe we wouldn't be in the situation we are right now. I'm kind of new to biking. I started about 2 years ago biking from my house, which is Victory and Cloverdale area, down to Boise State a couple times a week. And I can definitely say the freeway is a huge barrier. The mall area is another huge barrier. The Emerald Overpass is like a suicide lane for bikers. But out here in Southwest, we definitely have a lot of canals, and I know people are already using them informally and maybe illegally, according to the canal company. But my kids use them to get to their friend's house, and I would rather have them walk along the canal than walk down Victory Road where traffic's going 45 and they just have a gravel shoulder. So I'm really encouraged, and I hope that this plan, things start happening really soon so that our kids can be safer and we all can really experience our community a little bit better. Thank you.
Thanks, Marissa, and thanks for being a part of this. For a new biker, I'm impressed because you took Bree and myself and some others on a bike tour of Southwest Ada County, really, and your kids were on bikes as well. And you're right, the choice of words that you used for some of those streets was very accurate. And then you joined the Sycamore Overlay neighborhood for their bike tour that I was on as well. So I didn't realize that you were a new biker. It's great to see families around the city finding ways to get on their bikes and move around. And I'm impressed with the way your kids are using them in the neighborhoods that you live in to connect to school and friends.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Marissa, before you log off, I just wanted to thank you so much for testifying today in support of this. But I also want to take a moment to thank Marissa for testifying earlier today at the State House in opposition to HB 442. So she is a particularly engaged Boisean, and I just want to highlight that. Thank you, Marissa.
Well, thank you. That was pretty intimidating. They weren't, I'll probably get in trouble, but they weren't quite as friendly as you all are. So I'm thankful they didn't ask me questions.
Good to see you, Marissa. And next
Thank
up,
you.
it looks like Karen Danley's on the screen, but we can't see you. And that's okay. I just wanted you to know that.
I have my video on. It says it should be showing. I thought that might be from your end that it wasn't showing. Because if this is stop video. and this
No,
is-
we're good. We can hear you, Karen. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Thank you. First, I want to thank Boise for the invitation to join the Boise Pathway Planning Work Group as an equestrian representative. It was an honor to work together on the Boise Pathway Master Plan, and Deanna did an amazing job. Prior to moving to Boise in 1993, I resided in Eugene, Oregon, and Boulder, Colorado, where I commuted to school and work exclusively as a bicyclist and a pedestrian. And I moved to Boise 29 years ago because of the pathway system that was there at that time. So I'm honored to keep that moving along. As a parent and former teacher, it would be such a relief to have a pathway separating children from car traffic. For my daughter to make it to River Glen from our house, she had to cross Hillwood Parkway, and it scared me every day. As an equestrian and an Idaho Horse Council trail advocate, I have encouraged the committee and now the city council that as we are reaching forward to improve these pathways, to also include the tradition of horseback riding and keeping them connected to the trail system on the outskirts of town. And as a landowner with a canal easement on my land, I encourage planning and inclusion of the landowners. In Northwest Boise, I really appreciate the suggestion of Spoils Bank, connecting residents with Shadow Hills Elementary School, River Glen Junior High, 2 commercial areas, as well as the Greenbelt, and really appreciate that vision. Lastly, I serve as the secretary on the Fax Committee, and FACS is an acronym for Foundation Ada Canyon Trail Systems. So our primary mission is facilitating the development of the Greenbelt and pathway systems throughout Ada and Canyon counties. That has been in existence since 1987 and has ever since worked with government agents and private entities in the planning and development of pathway systems. So we work together with Compass, ITD, ACHD, and the cities and counties within Ada and Canyon County. So our president, William Gagray, has written a letter, which I hope you all received. And on the behalf of our FACS board, we have all voted to strongly support this pathway system. And we applaud the City of Boise staff for their work and the development of the proposed Boise Master Pathways Plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
You're welcome.
Madam Mayor, I don't have anybody with their hand raised. I do have one additional person who was just recently joined, but not sure if they would like to speak.
All right, well, raise your hand if you would like to, and meanwhile, we'll hear from some people in the audience. Come on up. Okay. And then Mary Beth.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of council, can you hear me all right? My name is Crispin Gravatt. I live at 117 North 17th Street here in Boise, and I'm here today in support of the master plan. I would like to focus on two primary issues in the plan. First, I would like to make sure that projects planned out associated with the plan do make particular considerations for people with limited mobility, and make sure that the pathways are accessible for an aging population that Boise is becoming, and make sure that all users are able to make use of the connectivity that we're building out. Second, in my capacity on the Public Works Commission, I have had the opportunity to engage with leaders in many irrigation districts here locally. And they do have a lot of concerns around the safety and the function of the canal systems that we have. So I look forward to continuing to build out that partnership and problem solve with them. And in particular, solving a big issue that irrigation district leadership does have in building the next generation of leadership. I think that creative partnerships with other entities in the city of Boise, like the Boise Watershed, to build out educational programming associated with the canal pathway systems might be a great opportunity for us to really make this a robust asset for the city of Boise. But I look forward to anything and everything that does come along with the plan and supporting it moving forward. Thank you.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Crispin, I'm glad that you brought up the accessibility point. It's really interesting that earlier today we actually had a presentation. And one of the things that was proposed was better accessibility on our trails, as well as a disability commission. And so it's exciting to see the city setting itself up to have all the tools needed to really be looking at these paths in a holistic way. And I think that that's something important for us to remember, that when we are building these, we really are building them for everyone, from equestrians to people on wheels, to people walking, to people in wheelchairs and walkers and everywhere in between. So again, thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, of course. And I do believe, I hope I'm not overstepping for anybody watching, but I do believe that we do have some strong allies to partner with from the state level Commission on Disabilities. Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks for your service on the Public Works Commission. Come on up. Welcome. It's great to see you in person.
My name is Mary Beth Nutting. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Mary Beth Nutting. My address is 5390 North Wall Avenue. Madam Mayor and members of Boise City Council, I have been a bicycle commuter for almost 40 years. 10 of those years, it was because I had to. I didn't have a driver's license, nor did I have access to a vehicle. So I either walked, biked, or took public transit. And then 26 of those years, it has been in Boise that I have bicycle commuted. And one of my life goals has been, for the past 35 years, is to make biking accessible and the outdoors accessible to everybody. So I am thrilled with this plan, and I appreciate everything that was covered in it. It was very detailed. I read all 157 pages. I'm so grateful that there are a lot of pictures. So along with that plan, I had also read this master plan urban bicycle route system from 1976. And when reading that, and it was fascinating, I noted that a lot of the projects that were in this plan from 1976 that we wanted to do back then are still plans that we want to do, that I saw in the plan that was just created this past year. Actually, a number of them are on there. Now, in 1976, I was a little girl, Now I am a middle-aged woman. And it should not have to take that long, almost 50 years, to get these pathways in place. And we all know about the history of the Boise Greenbelt, that also took 50 years. It's a very long, involved process. So in saying that, I would like to ask it to be considered that a position be created to focus solely on these pathways, because it is very complicated. Acquiring that right of way, working with ACHD, working with the irrigation companies and the railroad companies and the neighborhoods. And I'm glad that Councilwoman Willits brought up about funding, because that's also very complicated. And that person could then apply for grants and get the money that's necessary, because in another 50 years, I'm going to be dead. Probably. And I want the opportunity to use these pathways. I want to use them with my children. And so I'm asking that we speed the process along, that we not wait another 50 years, and that we create this position to work on these pathways. Thank you for all the work that's been done on it. I'm so happy for our residents of Boise. This is such a great thing. And I also thank you for the opportunity to speak at the hearing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor.
Oh, yes, Councilmember Sanchez.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mary Beth, I just wanted to thank you for being so passionate about the folks who are brave and travel around our valley, either by bicycle or by walking. And I want to bring particular attention to the way you advocate and you highlight those moments when cyclists and pedestrians have sadly succumbed to inattentive driving and car accidents. And I think it's really important that we remember that as well, that there are folks who are not waiting for the system to be safe, either because this is part of their value system and they're choosing to walk or ride a bike, or quite frankly, that they don't have other choices because of income, or the situation that Mary Beth outlined, not having the ability for not being able to drive or not having a vehicle. So I just wanted to thank you, Mary Beth, for highlighting those folks in our community.
Thank you, Councilwoman Sanchez. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Greg Russell, I can see you, so you're up.
Madam Mayor and City Council, I just would like to be able to comment tonight. I live at 5310 South Umatilla Avenue. I live in Southwest Boise. Believe that this master plan is a movement in the right direction. However, I believe that this plan could be expanded to be something that would make Boise even more beautiful. There's connectivity to certain open lands and spaces and parks within our city. There are certain areas in our city that have connectivity to open land, and the Boise foothills would be a great example of that. Southwest Boise is an area that struggles. So I think this is a step in the right direction. I would really like the city council to consider options for other residents in other parts of the city, and how these paths connect to open spaces, open parks that aren't built yet, those type of things, and have the city consider those. Residents in Southwest Boise are extremely passionate about this, and I hear from them often. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for this plan. Appreciate the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I have no one else online nor with their hand raised to testify.
Just want to confirm one more time, if there's anybody online, this is your chance. And nobody else in the room. Are there any further comments that staff wants to make or questions for staff? I'll go ahead and close the hearing.
Madam Mayor, I guess, have a question for staff, and I'm going to apologize for catching you a little bit off guard with this. So many people have had an opportunity to talk tonight, and a couple of you haven't, and I hope that we can maybe just take a quick second, and if you could just come up and let us know how you were involved with the plan.
That's a good idea.
I think that you've been as part of it as much as everyone else, and I'd just love to maybe give you one or a couple seconds on the mic to say hello. If that's okay, I apologize.
Madam Mayor, Council President, or excuse me, Councilmember Halliburton. My name is Lindsey Mosher. I'm the Communications Manager for Planning and Development Services. I started when this project was about maybe a little over halfway through. In late May, did the communications plan for the remaining outreach. And then I went on parental leave. So then I was out for a few months and then I came back to help finish up the project this fall.
Thanks, Lindsay.
Madam Mayor, I have a
Yes.
question for Lindsay.
Sure.
Lindsay, did you help produce the packet today?
In coordination with our consultant, and I would give most credit to Deanna that put all of that together.
Well, it was so well done. Kudos to you and to the team.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Halliburton, Bree Brush. I work on transportation policy in the mayor's office. My role at the beginning of this plan started when you approved it in the council budget last year for the money to allocate for a contractor. And throughout the plan, I've met with all of the other cities around us who already have plans in place to learn about what their best practices are, met with all of the irrigation district, did some ACHD coordination and did a lot of that partnership coordination to learn what everyone's different needs are, how we can learn from other communities, and added that in the supporting notes of the plan.
Councilmember, thanks for suggesting that.
Deanna, did
And
you have
I just
anything
wanted to
else?
say,
Yeah.
Councilmember or Madam Mayor, Councilmember Halliburton, I guess I want to say thank you. I think this project was a really great opportunity to be collaborative across divisions. This was House and Comprehensive Planning, but Bree in the mayor's office played a really important role in making sure the project moved forward quickly and was comprehensive in what we were looking at and not just from a planning lens. And then Lindsay said she came in halfway through, but she really gave us a lot of the energy we needed to do a second really big push public engagement outreach. So thank you to both of them.
Thank you. And now this is before you guys.
Madam Mayor?
I closed the hearing already. Yeah.
I should have asked you before, told you that I was going to do that. I thought we would have so many more questions for them tonight that everybody would get a chance to speak, but thank you for taking the opportunity to speak. Madam Mayor, I move approval of CPA 2105, City of Boise Pathways Master Plan and amendment to Blueprint Boise to adopt the Boise Pathways Master Plan by reference. I would also request that Parks and Rec return to council at a later date with a project management plan that outlines a staffing plan addressing the needs recommended on page 83, as well as some of the needs that we've heard requested tonight.
Second.
We have a motion and a second discussion.
Madam Mayor, I might hold my comments till after the vote, if that's okay. I don't think that there's anything that I need to convince anybody of at this point.
No, but it's best practice just to, you're not convincing us, but to share your thoughts before the vote.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
you can go last if you'd like to go last.
That's all right. I'll keep going. I got the mic on right now.
I'm happy to pretend to be unconvinced if you'd like.
Clearly, this is something that everybody supports and everybody is so excited about. I want to make sure that before we do call a vote, that I think everybody who took the time to testify tonight, when you come here on a regular basis for any issue, it makes good ideas better. So thank you for the time that you took tonight. And thank you for everybody who's been involved in the process. It was wonderful to see so many of you here in person, but also people online who we saw all throughout this process for the last year and a half, almost 2 years. And so many of those people are people who've continued to show up for this community again and again and again. And so I just want to say thank you so much for continuing to do that. Tonight is a pretty big night. I'm pretty excited. I'm also pretty honored that Council Member Clegg let me make this motion. This is something I've been working on for 8 years now, but this is something that Council President Clegg has been working on for much longer. And so it really does mean a lot to me that you allowed me to make this motion. And there's a bunch of people, I really want to thank to be part of this process, but if you'll indulge me just for a little bit, I hope that everybody understands the significance of this moment. And we've brought it up several different times tonight. But in 1969, we approved the plan for the Boise Greenbelt. And I don't know if anybody at that moment truly understood the impact that it would have on Boise and how it's transformed our community into what it is today, a city that, like Council Pro Tem Holly Woodings brought up earlier, I believe has the potential to be the bicycle capital of America. And one of the folks who testified tonight identified that as well. That was a 25-mile plan. And what made that plan real was that very first year they broke ground and they got started. One of our community members, Mary Beth, brought up a plan from 1976 that identifies so many of the pathways that are on this particular plan. What makes this one different is that this year in this plan that we are, I'm assuming, about to approve, with 112 miles of pathways in every single neighborhood in Boise, including the ones from Southwest Boise who showed up strong to testify tonight. And it's a plan that we're going to break ground on this year on at least one project, if not two projects. And that really is what makes this plan real and what really makes this special. And I don't know that we really, at this point, understand the impact that this is going to have. But Lisa Brady, one of the folks who are on here, she runs a Safe Routes to School program. Both of us work in a neighborhood around Bora High School. In the next 3 to 5 years, there could be a pathway that connects Bora High School all the way to Hillcrest Library and an entire neighborhood in between. And these are kids that her and I know really well. We work with on a regular basis. And we've already seen the obstacles that they can overcome with all the barriers that they face. And with some of these pathways, we're taking away some of those barriers. I hope our library staff over there is ready for the influx of kids that could be coming there soon. And we probably need to get some extra bike parking over there as well. But this is going to create opportunities that we don't even know about yet. And that's just one segment of this community. I am going to try to wrap things up because I know that everybody has some great things to say. But I think that it's important to remember all the folks who were really involved in this process, from the nonprofits like Conservation Voters of Idaho, Idaho Conservation League, the Boise Bicycle Project, the Sierra Club, who kind of pushed the political will with the Canals Connect Communities Coalition and really pushed this effort forward. Nonprofits who've been pushing these efforts for a really, really long time. I'm always amazed by the work that our nonprofit sector can do. And I just want to identify Eric Willitson and Nina Schaefer for really pushing that particular group forward. Your effort is so impressive for folks just willing to jump in there and get their hands dirty. I also want to make sure that I recognize the work of my fellow council members and the mayor. When I was elected in 2020, we had a chance to share our 3 priorities. One of mine was to learn a lot because I knew I had a lot to learn. One was to be a good team member, and the other was canal pathways. And luckily, Council President and you, Madam Mayor, were willing to help let me learn, were a good team player and allowed me to be on your team and allowed me to be part of this incredible vision that you've been pushing forward for the years. And so I'm so thankful for you letting me be part of that incredible process. The other thing that's pretty incredible that people don't really know is how much work our staff truly put into this. Bree Brush, Deanna Dupuis, Lindsey Mosher, Lana Grable. I remember our very first outreach that we did. It was the first in-person outreach event since the pandemic started. We hadn't done a single in-person outreach event, and it was like February or March, and it was outside.
At Julia Davis.
And the wind was the wind was like blowing all over the place. And you two had the face shields on, and you were trying to yell over the wind, and like Lana's just like holding on to stuff. And the community members that were there, although it was cold, I think they were having the best time because for the first time in a long time during this huge obstacle, this pandemic, they were able to be part of creating something good. And so many members of our communities really gathered together to do that and to make that possible. There are so many folks who served on our task force. And so many of those folks are, again, people who've shown up time and time again. 50 years from now, I do hope that all of this is complete. I would be 89. And I hope that we do have the opportunity to tell this story the same way that we told the story of the Boise Greenbelt. And I think that there's two things that I really, truly hope people remember. And it's that this process got started in the middle of a pandemic, where we didn't know what the future of anything would be, but our staff and our community members continued to push through and to make this a priority. And then the second thing, and I thought about this on my ride home the other night, I was thinking about all the people that were involved and what else was happening in 2020. And it was a celebration of 100 years of women's suffrage. And what is so impressive about this plan are the incredible women who really helped lead this and push this forward. Bree Brush, Lindsey, Deanna Dupuis, Lana, Alexis Pickering, Councilmember Clegg, you, Lauren McLean, so many people that were part of this. Our women led the way. And I hope that that is part of the success story that we tell 50 years from now of the obstacles that we overcame. Thank you so much for letting me be part of this process. And that's all that I'll say at this point. I'm sure there's more wonderful things from all of our council members. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, thank you so much for your comments and all of your work with our amazing staff. And I just wanted to call out also Tom Laws, who as part of our planning and development services staff was one of the ones who I think got this all kicked off in the very beginning, though he's no longer with us at the city, still a great partner. During the pandemic, I think it was really interesting because early on, we saw a lot of people getting out of their cars and getting onto the roads, getting onto the Greenbelt, and really using that as a way to connect a little bit with the community, connect with each other in a new way. And as a board member for Compass, I remember the city of Caldwell doing a study on use of their pathways, and they saw the use of their pathways triple in like a month. And it was pretty remarkable and incredible. They ended up, I think, getting a grant through Compass to build out a little bit more of their pathway system. I believe that it also involved a canal bank. And I remember thinking at that point, wow, like you keep hearing how we can't do anything on canal banks, how we've tried before and whatever reason, like there's safety concerns, there's access concerns, there's insurance concerns, and nobody can get it done. But I remember thinking when Caldwell got it done, it's like, if Caldwell can get it done, maybe we can get it done too. And so this whole plan is, I think, a really great testament to a lot of people's hard work, overcoming a whole lot of hurdles, overcoming a lot of, we can't do that, with here's a plan of how we're going to do it. And now we have to go out with very intentional action to get it done, hopefully before 50 years from now, so that we can actually be there for the celebration. I think that would be really great. A lot of folks who testified tonight, and thank you everyone for coming out and expressing your support, mentioned staffing and dedicated staffing. I do want to point out that we recently allocated quite a lot of resources to the mayor's office for project management for things specifically like this, for these strategic objectives. So I'm hoping that when someone comes back with a plan for project management and staffing of this, it takes those positions that we've already allocated and puts those towards implementation of this pathways plan, so that we can get this built out sooner rather than later, so that we can leverage all of those community partnerships, so that we can see Compass funding coming through for the city of Boise and not just for Caldwell. That would be tremendously exciting and rewarding. So thank you everyone for your amazing work. So excited to take my kids on pathways, real sketchy to take my 8-year-old who's all over the place anywhere near a road, because I know he's just going to go careening into traffic. So really looking forward to enjoying all of these pathways alongside our community. Thank you.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, we'll take Council President and then Councilmember Sanchez.
Thank you. Well, it's hard to follow Jimmy because he thanked everyone that really I was going to thank. So rather than repeat all of that, I'll just say ditto. Yes, thank you, all of the folks that he talked about. But I want to point out that despite the fact that you, Mayor McLean, and myself have been talking about canal pathways and these kind of pathways for a long time, the energy, the dedication, the knowledge that Councilmember Halliburton brought to this council really was the catalyst, I think, that got this moving. And so I really want to give him the credit for energizing this movement in a way that helped get it over the hump. It really has been a long time coming. There are a lot of barriers. Boise grew much earlier than our surrounding communities for the most part, and the canals that were part of our community forever got built around before anyone ever thought of the idea of formalizing canal pathways, because at least as I was a kid 50 years ago in this community, everybody just used them. Nobody thought that you had to have permission. Nobody thought it had to be formalized. Today, we do need to do that. And this is a plan to begin getting that done and doing it in a way that provides access all over the community. I also hope that it doesn't take 50 years. It was awfully gratifying to be part of the celebration of the Greenbelt at 50 years, but very sad that Councilmember Bill Onweiler had long since passed and wasn't there to be able to see that day. Although his children were there, his grandchildren were there, and it was great for them to see the outcome. It would have been wonderful if he could have seen it. So I guess selfishly for myself, I sure hope it doesn't take 50 years because I won't be here then. And I really do want to be here when we build out the majority of this. The other thing I'd like to point out is that this is unlike a plan that you write and put on the shelf and reference every once in a while. This is a plan that is going to be a living document. It's not static. As time goes by, we'll identify other locations where we'll want pathways that might not be lines on the map today. And I hope those get added. The point of this is that they will if they make sense. As time goes by, we'll identify other ways, other partnerships, other funding sources to get this done. And so in the spirit of that, I'd like to request that after we approve this tonight, which it looks like we're going to, that we also request that staff come back once a year with a report on the progress. If we're going to make this happen, we're going to make it happen more quickly. In my experience on this city council, when it's something that we measure and report on and pay attention to, at least on a yearly basis, it is something that moves a little more quickly. So I'd make that one request. And then there's so much more, but in the spirit of trying to keep this a little bit short, I will say one last thing about funding. And I appreciate Council Member Willett's question, how are we going to fund this? I hope that we'll fund it in a variety of ways. What I am most excited about right now is the passage of the Infrastructure and Investment and Jobs Act includes a lot of opportunities to go after grant funding that might help with this. And last year we approved a grant, more than one position to really work on that grant funding. So in addition to the partnerships with ACHD, and thank you, Commissioner Pickering, for being here, and I know some other of the commissioners are watching. In addition to the opportunities we have to partner with ACHD, in addition to the opportunities to partner with our nonprofits and the foundation like Fax, in addition to finding our own resources to move this forward, I think there's going to be many opportunities to go after grant funding. And like Councilmember Halliburton said, there's a couple of projects already on the books and ready to get underway this spring. I'm hoping that by the time we get the report next year on this program and on this plan, that there will be many more than those two. So I'm obviously fully supportive. And I should mention, without all of the council, this wouldn't have happened. You all voted to fund the study that produced this plan. And so, well, Councilmember Halliburton and I got to serve on that committee to help advise it. All of you were supportive and behind it all of the way. And thank you, everyone. It's going to be a great ride. This is a big deal. You know, we do a lot of kind of mundane things, kind of everyday things. It's not very often we get to do these big deal things that are going to make a difference in what this city looks like for a long time to come in the future. So thank you, everyone.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you to Councilmember Halliburton and Council President Clegg for bringing their passion and their particular experience to this particular project. I have to be honest, I was so deeply moved when we started to celebrate the 50-year anniversary of the Greenbelt. And I have to shout out Terry Shoresman, our Director of Arts and History, for detailing for us what it took to give us the Greenbelt that I think so many of us take for granted. I'm 50 years old, so the Greenbelt's existed as long as I have. And to think that something that is such, it's the heart of Boise. It's what we point to with pride. And to hear the history, to hear Terry tell it, that as a high school student, her science teacher would give extra credit for students who could bring samples of the Boise River to test. And that in order for her to reach the water's edge, she had to climb over 2 abandoned vehicles. We can't picture that now. We can't imagine that that's how our community once treated our beautiful river. And just having the knowledge of what it took to create this feature that we all love so much, that I know to this day, there are some people who take those polar plunges in this beautiful, pristine river. And I was inspired when I learned about that a couple of years ago. And what I think is when we know our history, when we know what we're capable of as a community, it has a ripple effect. And so I remember one of the first things I told our new mayor was, I want to work on this. I want to be a part of something big and beautiful, and that we're going to point to and say, I had my fingerprints on that. And so that is what I'm hoping. I'm hoping that moving forward, that every council member will have an opportunity to put their fingerprints on this project, the canal pathways. I think it's important for us to have different perspectives at the table. I know a lot of my colleagues are very outdoorsy. I grew up in a farm worker family, and it wasn't until about not even 10 years ago that I learned to appreciate nature and to feel that it was a place where I could enjoy. Because when you grow up working in the fields, you're brought up to believe that being outside is a punishment. You have to be there. And to be able to have that paradigm shift, to be able to see the outdoors as a place of respite, as a place where you can rejuvenate yourself, that requires some doing. And I am grateful for all our community leaders who work so hard to preserve our open space, and what it's been for a lot of folks in our community. And Council President Pro Tem Whittings mentioned it earlier. You know, during this pandemic, we've had our community members turn to the outdoors, turn to the beautiful outdoor spaces that we've preserved for them. And I think that this is an opportunity for us to invite different perspectives. So we need people who are not comfortable in the outdoors. We need people who are not comfortable riding bicycles, who have not yet chosen that option as a way to either recreate or to travel around our valley. So I'm hoping that we will make that a priority as well, to make sure that we honor the wishes of our constituents who have all voted for us to give our particular input to these important projects. And again, I just want to thank our staff for this wonderful work. Very rarely do we have projects where there's so much consensus. And I can feel, even though I'm on Zoom, I can feel the excitement and the appreciation and the love that our community has for everyone who's putting forward effort to make this happen.
Madam Mayor, this really is a huge deal, and I want to congratulate every organization and person who participated in this collaborative process and made it happen. And I want to thank Councilmember Halliburton and Council President Clegg for giving me the opportunity to vote yes tonight. I'm excited to do that.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I think I'm the odd woman out, so I need to add my voice here. When I met with each council member before I was sworn in, I had the opportunity to meet with Councilmember Halliburton, and I asked him, what was the most exciting thing that he was working on, and he talked about this, and then he was kind enough to reach out to me and ask me if I had questions, and this is just phenomenal. I think this is going to be a legacy project. Like I said earlier, I think people are going to love this. They're going to want more of it. And it's going to really change the dynamics for our community for the better. And I'd like to echo what Councilwoman Sanchez said. For those of us who are not as outdoorsy, who probably could get beat on a bike pretty easily, what I love about this is that it's for those who want to walk, those who want to just enjoy this beautiful valley. So I am thrilled to vote yes and so excited for the future of this project.
Thank you. Well, I won't be voting tonight, but I did want to say a couple of things. First of all, I want to thank staff for the work that you did. As Councilmember Halliburton said, I'm starting in one of the most challenging times our city has seen in so long. And staying focused on it, bringing to council and to the community, importantly, the information that they needed, that we needed, the coalescing activities that you created to bring us together, to talk to the value of these linear pathways and linear parks that could be, if we could first imagine and then make it real in planning, and then really make it real by building relationships and calling on others to help us do this. And to Councilmember Halliburton and Councilmember Clegg, who are part of the committee, canals have always been part of the Boise story. From the time the first white people came from the east and landed here, they were dreaming of how to connect our river to our benches and our lands that would eventually become farms. And what more logical way than to connect our residents from our farmland to our foothills connected by our river than to look today at what outside places, working spaces, as Councilmember Sanchez so appropriately put, the change in ways that we've looked to farmland, to being outside if you were a farm worker, our own city history when we looked at what canals were and then what the river was, a dumping ground, and then re-envision that as we thought about the connection between us as people and the place in which we live when we then went to work on the Greenbelt. The same thing happened with so many residents, and Councilmember Clegg, I think you were part of that committee back in the day that put together a foothills plan that was made real because a council was willing to vote yes, and then to work hard to get it passed as a levy so that there was a funding source. And the legacy of that is not just the money that was spent, that was provided to us by our residents, but the partnerships that were formed, the donations that were made, the landowners that never would and then wanted to. And that's what will make this work again. is if we see the same thing. And I believe that we will, because our residents came together to put this plan in place that makes it possible for those of us that live in Southwest Boise to connect safely to your downtown, to your foothills. And of course, more importantly, in many ways, is the kids that need to get everywhere in between. But I think it'll be possible because we have that resident commitment. It requires hard work and partnership, many steps which have been taken in the last year to really solidify a foundation for partnerships that will be productive in making these investments. It does require funding, and that'll be grant funds, I hope, partnership here locally. Our Foothills Open Space and Clean Water Committee has included this as part of the criteria that's appropriate for funding. And the residents have said that this is incredibly important. So a plan does sometimes, unfortunately, just sit on a bookshelf. There's many in City Hall that have been written and then filed away on a shelf too high for me to reach. But then there are those plans that are actually made good on quickly. And we've seen that in the things that have been successful. And I'm confident that this will be one of those too. And so I really am grateful to our residents for coming out in tough times. We were trying to do it safely in different ways, for jumping online, sharing your feedback, to the canal companies that have built relationships with our staff and that took me along canals to help me better understand how they connect with the community, but also our working waters and what that means. And to each one of you up here that is going to help us, because that's incredibly important, ensure that we take the steps in the coming year to make real on this vision and build the momentum necessary that then will, I believe, make people want to partner even when they haven't thought in the past that they'd want to. And so there's a ton of opportunity, and really look forward to working on this with each of you. Go ahead.
Holly Burton,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Willetts,
Yes.
Woodings.
Yes.
Bajent,
Yes.
Clegg.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Well, congratulations and thank you all. And now, that was it.
Madam Mayor, I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
We are adjourned. Thanks, everybody, so much for being here tonight.